My name is Martha Piper, and I am the interim president and vice chancellor of UBC. Every year at Congregation, UBC has the honor of bestowing honorary degrees upon individuals who, in the opinion of the university community, have fit the criteria of excellence and eminence in their chosen field. Hugh Possingham is one of those individuals, and I invite him to step forward to receive his honorary degree. Mr. Chancellor, Hugh Possingham is a renowned scientist whose interdisciplinary pursuits and innovation have led to the development of sound conservation principles worldwide. Described as the world's foremost quantitative ecologist, his academic career has followed a diverse pathway, beginning with his first position as a lecturer in applied mathematics at the University of Adelaide. Dr. Possingham was subsequently appointed as Professor of Applied and Molecular Ecology before moving to the University of Queensland, where he is currently the Vice Chancellor's Senior Research Fellow and holds a dual appointment as Professor of Mathematics and Professor of Ecology. His research activities include a number of expanding fields within conservation biology, basic ecology theory, and applied ecology. Most notably, he played the lead role in the development of a systematic conservation planning tool known as MARSAN, which is used today in over 100 countries to support the design of marine and terrestrial reserves, including the rezoning of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, the largest systematically designed reserve network in the world. MARSAN's other applications have included protected species planning in New Zealand and conservation prioritization in British Columbia's Great Bear Rainforest. His work at the University of Queensland also includes serving as director of the Centre for Biodiversity and Conservation Science, which connects his conservation research colleagues and graduate students with networks of Australian and international research teams working on the science of effective decision-making to conserve biodiversity. He has co-authored numerous papers that have been published in the world's preeminent science journals, and he has received numerous awards and fellowships, including recently becoming the first Australian elected as a Fellow of the Ecological Society of America. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of a university with deep commitments to research excellence and sustainability, I ask you to confer the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa, upon Hugh Philip Possingham.
By the authority of the Senate of this university, I confer upon you, Hugh Philip Possingham, the title and degree Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
it gives me great pleasure now to ask Dr. Possingham to say a few words.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Chancellor. It's a lot of clapping for one small Australian. Certainly a great honour to receive an honorary doctorate. I wasn't even quite sure what they were, and having had my doctorate from Oxford and worked for 3 years on it, I thought, well, I could have just waited. You could have given me one for free. So what can an Australian tell recently graduated students and their families that might be meaningful? And I know a lot of these speeches at graduation ceremonies can read a bit like how to win friends and influence people talks and how to make a success of your life. And I want to try and avoid that. So what do Australians know? Am I just going to sit here and say, no worries, be happy? I'm going to talk about two short stories, and the stories are going to be about purpose and autonomy. And I think the autonomy is the thing that people often forget about. But just before I do that, I might like to thank also the people who put together this citation for me, Peter Arcese, Tara Martin and the heads of forestry, and thank them for the honour. I'm particularly happy to be getting an honorary degree from this university because many of you may not know that my field is conservation and mathematics, a mixture of economics and engineering all tied together. This university has led the world in that area for a very, very long time. So this is the place to do really smart natural resource management, whether it be forestry or fisheries. And you have had some of the great minds. Colin Clark wrote the book on bioeconomics and is the world leader in that field. Carl Walters is still here on faculty and is a genius, and you have Daniel Pauly here in the Fisheries Science Centre. These are all the best people in the world at that field. So I was particularly happy for me to get an honorary degree from this university. But what about purpose and autonomy? So I'll tell just one quick story. Life is very long if you don't have purpose. I grew up bird watching with my father. We would go every weekend to see birds. That is my passion, looking at birds, thinking about them. The place we used to bird watch, about the age of 17, we'd go there every month or so. I turned up one day and the place we went that had hundreds of species of birds and hundreds of species of flowers had been turned into a wheat field in 2 weeks. It was destroyed. All that diversity that is of life had been taken away, and I thought it was mine. It wasn't mine, it was the farmers. And that was the point of my life at the age of 15, 16 when I saw purpose. And that has been my life ever since then, is to save as much of nature as possible. We're looking at a situation where half the species on the planet will disappear. Half the species on the planet will disappear in the next 200 or 300 years, and the timescale for that to evolve back again is something like 1 million years, which means 10,000 times as many people as have ever lived will suffer the consequences of biodiversity loss. So at that point I made my life purposeful, and I hope you will make your life purposeful. And I won't tell you all what happened after that, but when I eventually turned up to Queensland, the northeastern state of Australia, very similar to British Columbia, natural resource rich, a little bit sunnier and warmer, was destroying vegetation at a rate of 500,000 hectares a year, 500,000 football fields a year of rich, diverse vegetation were being flattened, and usually not making anybody any money whatsoever. So my purpose was to stop that. After lots of campaigning, our Premier at the time, Premier Peter Beattie, waved a letter that I'd written to the Prime Minister and him, and he said land clearing will stop. Land clearing virtually stopped in Queensland over 2 or 3 years. That saved 10% of Australia's greenhouse gas emissions, that one letter and the campaign behind that letter. So at that point, I suppose I was quite happy. I thought, I can die. I never thought I would save 10% of the greenhouse gas emissions of an entire country. And that purpose remains because the battle still goes on. Places like Brazil are still, and I've just come back from Brazil, are still clearing 500,000 hectares of rainforest a year, wiping out species and threatening humanity. This is a cause. But the second thing I want to talk about, so find a purpose. You're lucky. You've entered a world with plenty of problems. There is no lack of purpose out there. If you can't find one in the next 3 or 4 years, then think again. Autonomy is the other thing that I really do cherish. When I first came back to Australia, I entered discussions about forest logging in Australia. Forest logging in Australia is about 10 times less profitable than it is here. Our forests are difficult to log, and they're very diverse, and they basically lose the country money. And I made a lot of outspoken statements as a completely untenured academic in a university. I didn't have a permanent job, and at that point many senior academics and people from government told me I was destroying my career, which is clearly true. They said you shouldn't speak out, and they tried to shut me down, and I basically ignored them because I was arrogant and obnoxious. But the bottom line is this: going into academia, I have been so privileged I can say whatever I like. I know that my vice-chancellors, chancellors and presidents have been repeatedly told to tell me to be quiet. And they do not. University presidents and vice-chancellors and chancellors do not tell their academic staff to be quiet. They tell them to take the knowledge they have and tell the community what their knowledge means. And so, in your life, wherever you are, other than purpose, the one thing you must cherish, you must never lose hold of, is autonomy. The happiest people in the world are, as the Chancellor said, not the richest people in the world. In fact, the studies have shown that the happiest people in the world are the people who wake up in the morning and they decide what they're going to do. They may be an artist, they may be owning a small shop or a small business, or they may be an academic. So cherish your autonomy, never let it be taken away. Thank you very much.